Hope everyone had a beautiful holiday with the family. And I hope everybody's happy to be back. Christmas is over. Time to save our money, make our money, and yeah, enjoy all the gifts we got, the people we hung out with, the things we gave, the things we got. But yeah, we're back. We have New Year's coming up, but who really likes New Year's? I don't know. It's not really for me. I don't. On a scale of 1 to 10, like going out, I'm like a 2, maybe. Like you won't catch me out anywhere ever. And if you do, I'm probably like bowling, and I'm probably going to the movies. But I'm doing both of them by myself. Sometimes I might go like with my girlfriend to a movie theater, or I might make her go bowling with me. But either way, that's about the most I would do. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about like sports with like no end goal, like certain sports that you will train for your entire life, and then you like the outcome is like financially not like positive. Like there's sports like that. Like there's bowling. Like the top bowling people in the world make like $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year. I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, at 8 years old, you go to one of your friends, birthday parties, and you look over to the lane next to you, and somebody's bowling, and they are, like, kicking ass, and you look up to that, and you're like, damn, I want to bowl like that. So from 8 years old to 15 years old, you're bowling all throughout middle school. You get into high school, and you're bowling and bowling. You're on the high school bowling team, and then, you look around and you have friends that play like baseball or football or soccer or whatever, and they end up making like scholarships to go to like universities, and then you might even know somebody who ends up going pro and they sign a contract and they make money, but meanwhile you're sitting there, but you're training the same amount. You're still practicing, you're still out there putting in the hours to become the best bowler that you could possibly become, but nothing comes from it. I was thinking about that, and I was starting to like think about that in the sense of just like a normal job. Like there's so many things that you do in life that you love, and like financially there's not a net positive. Like, there's so many jobs that like are portrayed as a young kid that you are guaranteed to be successful with, even though generally there's no like net positive. There's no upside to it. And the sports thing really like caught my attention. Like I was thinking about this during Christmas, while everyone's opening gifts, because that's where my mind goes. I was thinking about like if you are in Europe, or if you're like from India, or I guess the Middle East maybe, and you love cricket, you play cricket all the time, you're the best cricket player like in middle school, in high school, in the state, and even a little bit of college time, and then you get a job outside of your country. You got to fly over here, and then you have to get a job in this country, but you're the best cricket player ever, or like one of the top tier cricket players like in India, but then you fly over here and you're not like the best cricket player. Like you're not like, I mean, you're probably the best here, but there's no money in it. There's no money in it. I mean, maybe you could like start up like your own cricket like company, like market it maybe that way, but it's, I don't know, there's so many things like culturally, there's so many diverse traditions that people do throughout the world that some cultures do, some cultures don't do. It's just, I don't know, it's really interesting how you can just travel in different parts of the world where they don't even know what American football is here, but like here, American football is everything. Like culturally, the world is so complex, and there's always things changing. And the way that the way that the world is always moving, there's always different things, weight coming up and coming down. There's different peaks and different bottoms out on so many different social gathering events, and sports are so highly, so highly like connected and intertwined with like culture, like rugby in South Africa, American football in the United States, Jackie Robinson, baseball in the African American community. There's just so many, like soccer overseas. like you always see like on the TV that there's different, like there's always soccer, or I guess football news stories happening all the time. But in this country, I don't think of soccer ever. I don't think of football ever. I'm not good at it. I never played it. I mean, like when I was like 4 or 5, 6 years, 7, 8 years old, around that age, but I wasn't like good at it. But I don't know. And that really got me to think about just how important culture is. Like, it's one of those things in science. It's one of those things in science, and I love science, don't get me wrong, and you can talk so much about it. You can say how, genetics are going to predetermine this about somebody. The way your relationship with your parents are going to determine this about somebody. Epigenetics, the way that you pick up certain things from certain people. Behaviors, qualities about you that were picked up from your uncle or from this moment in your life that altered your part of your brain. But there's one thing that I think makes humans so unique, and this is something that I don't think people give enough credit to, and I think it's really important. The idea of culture and the way that culture intertwined so like deep with the development of humans. And it's you can have two people, it's one of those reasons why our prefrontal cortex, especially for men, is developed so late in life, because the way that culture, and I try to explain this all the time, but I'm not the best with it. 1 second. If you can't keep up with me, go back and listen to it again, but I'm trying my hardest to explain it. So most animals, they have a prefrontal cortex it's not that big. And the reason why they're not that big is because they don't have to experience so much of life to develop a personality and a characteristic so heavily dependent on their life. You look at like a rat for a second, for an example. A rat's born into the world, and they're pretty much fully developed already. Why? Because the life of a rat, there's not like the rat here in the United States is not so much more different than the rat out in, Europe. And the reason for that is because they developed the most the most efficient way to produce the most amount of rats. That's why rats are so popular, because the way that it works is so efficient, And there's not a reason for a rat to go out and discover the world and take in different senses and take in different experiences. So the prefrontal cortex, which allows people to make, not allows, but it's what if it's not fully developed, it's what causes impulsive decisions, a lack of thoughtful ideas before you do something, association with different cultures and different groups of people. It's kind of like everything that you experience, it sets you in the hierarchy of the world. So you look at most animals, and they don't have a prefrontal cortex that's so huge. Birds are the same way. They have a very reptilian mind, and the way that they function is very, almost very like, not OCD, but very meticulous, and they're on a schedule all the time. And then you look at mammals, especially mammals, animals that require more of a social group, a social gathering, a group that there's different pods. Like for whales, there's different pods. For gorillas, there's different groups, and they all interact differently. There's different families. They go to war with each other. Dolphins will go to war with each other. These animals have a higher developed prefrontal cortex, a larger prefrontal cortex, and it takes up more percentage in their brain. And the reason for that is because they need to experience the world, and they need what needs to be let in the world among their species, and what's let into their brain. By the way, I'm not an expert on any of this. I don't really know why I'm talking about it, but it's just kind of what I wanted to cover, I guess, somewhat. I hope everyone had a great Christmas. But everything anything that's picked up by their senses is all going to determine where they are placed in the society of their animals, what group they choose. And the only way to make the best decision is to experience areas of your life that you may have made a mistake and you shouldn't have been in that group. And so you withdraw, then you try this group, and if you withdraw from that one, and you really learn where you belong in the hierarchy real quick. And the cause for that is a developing prefrontal cortex that that allows you to make decisions that may have a negative side effect. You become more impulsive, and you experience life in many different outlets. So culturally, so the that so literally the size of your brain is, for the prefrontal cortex at least, is so necessary for where you are in the world. So the culture affects that part of your brain directly, and there's so many things about like genetics and like the age of a certain species and their brain. You hear reptilian brain all the time. But it's really interesting when you really look at it, like different regions of the brain that fire at different times for different genders, for male different sexes. I understand that there's two sexes, genders. I understand you could be multiple genders, since gender is a complete social construct. My dog's barking. Lost my train of thought. My dad's home too, so it's always weird to do a podcast when your dad's home or when someone is home at your house. But it's very interesting when you look at like the anatomy of the brain and how, because you never want to think that the world, at least for me, I never wanted to think that the world had a direct relationship to your brain, especially with B.F. Skinner and everything in the 1920s, where he was right on a lot of things, the behavior psychologist, but he was wrong on the fact that you can't just treat humans and kids like they're machines, because they're not machines. And a lot of his studies were done with machines like rats and stuff. And you made this correlation that was completely false, that humans function like machines. If you feed us, if you give us water, and you teach us how to survive, we'll be okay. But there's something that's so important with culture. There's something so important with association with other people that are like you and that are not like you. There's something so important with being coddled by your mom, by your dad, by learning from different groups of society that are wrong and that are right, so you know how you need to function the best. And all that's like the window, like your prefrontal cortex is the window that lets that in. If it was fully developed and fully formed, it wouldn't be let in. A lot of this I've read from Robert Sapolsky's Behave, this book right here. And it's so interesting if you really think about it, because as a child, at least for me, there were so many times where I would hang out with this group of people that I don't hang out with today. Santa Claus is still here. I might keep Santa Claus, at least during the holidays for like the next few episodes. But there's so many moments of my life that I look back at, I'm like, why did I hang out with that group of people? Why did I talk to that person? Why did I hang out with them that long? I don't associate myself with goth people today, but I did at one point. I'm not a skater today, but I did at one point. I don't do a lot of things that I used to do. And it is so, I don't know. I've been just putting a lot of thought into it lately. It's so interesting because it develops who you are. Your personality is not just from genetics and from birth. It develops, it literally develops. There's that famous study with a monkey, a real monkey, and what this, I forget it. God damn, I forget who it was. I think it was a psychologist and a primatologist. So someone who studies, psychology, and somebody who studies the interaction in the anatomy and physiology, just primates in general, but not humans, but like actual primates. Well, I guess we are primates, but like, you know what I mean? Like gorillas. It was mainly like gorillas, chimpanzees, which is our closest relative, and like bonobos. And what they did is they had this baby ape, this baby chimp. What they did is they put it in two separate rooms. So they had one room here with so they have one chimp in one room. But on each side of the room, they put a figure that looks like a mother chimp. It's soft. It doesn't have water, and it doesn't give food to the baby, but it's soft, and and it's not real, it's fake, but they make it soft like a mama chimp, but they don't give it food or water. So this one shows the comfort that the baby needs, but it doesn't have the food or water. And then on the other side of the room, I don't know how big the room is, I don't think it really matters, they have another chimp that looks just like a chimp, a mother chimp to this baby. But this one doesn't have any comfort. It's like stone essentially. But it has food and water, and it has food and water every day, all day. And why the study is so famous, it falls into like the study like Pavlov's theory, or not theory, but the Pavlov's behavior development. It's like that famous. The chimp went to the comfortable, the safe, the cuddly chimp, to that mother, rather than the one who had food and water but was stone. And it shows just the importance of acceptance and comfort in humans' life, and how that is so crucial for the development of them as an adult. And it's something that I don't think people ever think of, but it's something that is so damn important. And I've heard parents who show lack of love, and may not hold the kid when the kid needs to be held, and we don't think that it makes such a big impact on the child or the future of any or of people in general. But the truth is, the science is, it has such a huge impact on the way that the kids develop, the way that their brain functions, what is right and what is wrong. If a kid does something that's right, and they do well in school, or they make a friend, or they have a friend that gets their feelings hurt, but they include them and they take care of them instead of piling on them and making fun of them, and a kid's not rewarded for that, then they don't think that that's the right thing to do, and then they won't do it in the future. They look at that as a wrong situation. But then if you have a kid who does wrong, it does things and always get in fights, and then you have a parent who rewards that in a negative way, then the kid's going to grow up to think that that's right and that's wrong. And that's always been my issue with right and wrong. You have this universal idea of what is right and what is wrong. If someone's crossing the street and they're handicapped, the right thing to do is to, they have like a little pusher. The right thing to just do is go there, hold their hand, or just stand next to them so they don't get hit by a car, they don't fall, or whatever. That's the right thing to do. The wrong thing to do, and this is generalizations, and what I'm going to say is it's very touchy, because those ideas and those definitions of those words, the connotation is very deeply ingrained in our society, in our brains, but not for everybody. And what the wrong thing to do is go over there and not help them. I'm not saying push them, I'm not saying trip them, I'm not saying tell the car to speed up and hit them. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is not to present them with a easier situation. Don't use yourself to help them. You just keep on walking. That's the wrong thing to do, right? Now, the right and wrong, it's not black and white. This and this is when it gets weird. There's so much in between right and wrong. There's the right thing to do, which is that, but the right thing could be the wrong thing for somebody else. Like if I grew up in a situation where I had a father or a mother who was abusive and always did the wrong, quote unquote, wrong thing at every turning point, then in my head, I should not help that person, because I haven't been taught that is the correct thing to do. I think this is very important. I think people are too quick to assume that if somebody acts out of character, I hate that phrase, that they're a bad person. But it's not that. And this goes back to the culture relationship with the prefrontal cortex and just the body in general and the people in general. We're not a complete being ever, right? And I hate when people say, oh, it's not even fully developed till you're 25. But even at 25, you can be, crucially changed. And you hear it all the time with relationships. You change. It's like, yeah, I did change, for the better or for the worse. And a lot of that has to do with the way that we interface with the world, the way that the world interfaces with us, the way we receive information, what we choose to receive, what we don't choose to receive. Like with this Donald Trump impeachment thing going on, I know plenty of people going up to me and telling me about it and how crucial it is and how bad it is, and how it's like the worst. He's the worst person in the world. And then I have people come up to me and say how incredible he is and how great he is. Now, it's one of those things, it's like polar opposites, right? And he's a polarizing figure. He is he's very much, I would say, probably the most popular person in the world, which you don't want to admit if you're anti him, but if you're pro him, you love it. Now, anytime there's two options of any situation where they're polarizing options, one's completely on this side, the left or the right, whatever you want to say, left or right, red or blue, which is so ironic that there's teams in this country and there's red versus blue, which is like so childish to me. But anytime there's ever polarizing options, a yes and a solidified yes and a solidified no, I think the first thing to do in those situations, instead of picking a side, is observing each side, right? Observing each side, trying to understand. Because if there's somebody who's, you can't, look, what you can't do is you can't assume that somebody's completely wrong, right? You can't assume that. I mean, I guess you could, and I guess most people do. But it's super ignorant. It's incorrect in my opinion, and you can't just think that like if somebody is so pro Trump that they're a complete idiot. Whereas you also can't think if somebody is so anti-Trump that they're a complete idiot, because there's middle ground and there's understanding. And clearly, if there's a lot of people who who support it or don't support it, I think the best thing to do, and this is just my opinion, is to sit back and observe and to understand. And this has, this goes outside of Trump or whatever you want to say. That's just kind of I understand if you're like driving and listening to this, or you're in the car and listening to whatever you're doing, and you're listening to this. Whenever you bring up the word Trump, it catches you and it brings you back in. It's that insane. You can't allow yourself to just be completely closed off and assume that you're a fully developed, opinionated person on something. It's like stunted growth, in my opinion. It's something that you always have to listen. Like, am I pro-Trump? No. Am I anti-Trump? No. Am I Democrat? No. Am I Republican? No. What am I? You don't have to be an I. You don't have to be a thing. You can just be a person who listens to each side. And that's a beautiful thing. And what you realize, the older I get, and I'm young, I'm 23, but the older I get, and the more interactions I have with people on the blue team or the red team, what I figure out more at the end of the day is what they want is the world to be a better place, right? What they want is the world to be a better place. And the way that they think that the world could be a better place is if Trump gets voted in again, or if somebody else does, or if he gets impeached, or if he doesn't get impeached. Generally, that is what it is. Now, yes, you have some people who, and this is where I think it can get dangerous, is you have people who attack just to attack to hurt other people. That's a completely different story, and there's plenty of people out there. That's another thing. I think whenever you watch the news, whenever you interact with anything that's in the public, is you have to be very careful with accepting what's true generally and what's not true generally. I think a lot of the things that are thrown around, a lot of things that are said, are underdeveloped studies in a science world. They're not peer reviewed. They're not intended to help. They're intended to make noise. And I think it's very important to take everything with a grain of salt and for you to do your own study, but not your own study on just one side of the battlefield. But I just used the word battlefield. That's disgusting. But on one side of the coin, but instead flip it. And do your studies on both sides of the coin, and I think that allows you to interact with so many more people in a positive way. And at the end of the day, you want to go to bed at night happy. But if you're going to bed every night angry because your father or your friend or your cousin or anybody believes in this and you don't believe in that, you're hurting yourself. I mean, literally, your blood pressure is higher because you're angry. And you're not ever going to get an apology. But I think it's what I do in the situations where I don't agree with somebody is I avoid the conversation, or what I do is I try to understand where they're coming from, because clearly the person that they are is the path that they've taken. And for a lot of that life, they didn't have a choice really, between 0 to 18, they had choices, or between 0 to 10, they didn't really have too many choices, and I think it's really cool to look at people and understand that they're just a developing zygote still. They're just out of the mother and the end of the world, and I think it's really cool to look at people at like stages of life and like, oh God, you love him so much or you hate him that much, but like why? Like, I just want to know why, and I don't want to disagree, but I just want to listen. I just want to understand. And if I don't understand, then that's not my job to understand. But I think it's so neat that somebody can have such a solidified opinion on anything. Like, isn't that neat? I think that's so cool that anybody out there can have a very, very strong opinion on anything. Um, I don't know. I've had interactions, or I've heard things, or I've, lately, these past few days, where there's complications between relationships, and it's due to the fact that there's no give on either side. There's not a mutual understanding on either side. And that makes me sad because at the end of the day, you are who you are, not 100% by your terms, by your choice. And I think the best way to really allow it to be okay if somebody has a different opinion is to listen to their opinion, try to understand where they come from, and realize they're a different, unique flower. They're a different, unique person. And that's what I'm saying about the prefrontal cortex, to just connect it all back in. We are always developing. We're not rats, right? We're not robots, right? We're not an iPhone. We're not a bird, like a crow. We're not. We're human beings with conflicting ideas, conflicting topics. We don't agree on everything. We never will agree on anything. We're always going to be bickering because we're always trying to get our voices heard and try to quiet down the other voices because it affects our voices from being heard, right? That's just how it works. But I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think what we need to do is to understand the beauty that's in that, how special that is, how special it is to be a human and to have conflicting ideas and debate about them, but not in a violent manner. But when there's something wrong, it has to be addressed. And I don't know. I think we live in a world where it's so easy to be angry right now, and we live in a world where it's accepted to be angry, and if you're angry enough, you're rewarded for being angry. I think that's not good. I think we know what's wrong generally, and I think if somebody's acting out of character, they need to just bring it down a notch. If you're so far either way, left, right, up, down, straight, not straight, whatever it is, I think a little bit of the other side needs to be listened to just calm me down a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I've just really been intrigued lately on the aggression that people show on things all the time. I mean, all the time. All the time people are angry. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I want to share this quote with you, something that I love a lot by Thomas Larry. Let's write this down real quick. I hope everyone had a good holiday, and you guys hung out with people that you love and people that you care about. So this is a Tommy Leary quote. He was a neurologist at Stanford, I want to say. I hope I'm not wrong on that. But he worked with a gentleman by the nickname of Raz Das, who was also he worked with him in Stanford. I believe it was Stanford. I want to say it was Stanford. It was maybe it was Harvard. Could have been Harvard. Stanford is the West Coast Harvard, right? That's what they say, and Harvard's Harvard. It's so ironic. I don't know. I think I've blown a few people's minds with this, but the only difference between what are they called? The really nice schools, MIT, Harvard, Yale. Fuck, what are they called? Oh my god. East Coast. Oh my god, I get a piece of that. I can't think. Ivy League schools. Thank Jesus Christ. Only difference between Ivy League schools and other really good schools out on the West Coast is that Ivy League schools are, and by the way, Stanford is an Ivy League school, but is that they're just the oldest schools, and they're in the Northeast. That's what the Ivy League school is. So I don't know. I think that's. I told someone that, and they were so shocked. They were really. They didn't believe me. I was like, yeah, that's all they are. They're just the oldest schools, like Harvard. I think Penn, MIT, Yale, Brown, Princeton. Yeah, they're just like the oldest schools, and and obviously they're the Northeast because that's the oldest part of the country. But, anyways, Raz Dass just recently died, and I've been really looking into him, and he's a really interesting guy. And Timothy Leary was in my book, Neurotribes. There's a part of him that came up, but I really like this quote, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it. I know I have a good quote with my girlfriend; she likes it, so she's really smart. But this is the quote: "Admit it, you aren't like them. You're not even close. You may occasionally dress yourself up as one of them, watch the same mindless television shows as they do, maybe even eat the same fast food sometimes. But it seems that the more you try to fit in, the more you feel like an outsider, watching the quote-unquote normal people as they go about their automatic existence. For every time you say club passwords like, quote, have a nice day, and, quote, weather's awful today, eh? You yearn inside to say forbidden things like, quote, this is what I relate to the most, quote, tell me something that makes you cry, or what do you think deja vu is for? I love that. When I read that quote, I was like, I was going to bed late at night. It was Christmas Day, but the eve of Christmas Day. And I was like, God damn, I've always wondered, like, why I've always been so concerned about level 2 of people's emotions. And I don't think concerned is the right word, but why I've always been so intrigued with deeper level of people, deeper meaning of the world, and why I've always struggled so much with being an automatic conveyor belt of society. Why I've always had to almost like not act out, but go against the grain to test things, to understand people better, and to understand the world in a deeper meaning, I guess. I'm not saying, an automatic life, which is how's the weather today or how are you, is not deeper meaning. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I've always been so concerned with when someone asks me how is their day. I've been more intrigued with people who answer the question, how is your day? I've been more interested in people who I've been least interested with people who say good, or no, I've been interested with the people who say good, right? And I've always, even at work, I ask people, how are you doing today? Or, have a nice day, or how was your day, or anything like that, or how are you doing today, or, whatever it is. And if they say good, I've always, watched them walk away, and in my head, I'm looking at them, and I'm watching them walk, and I'm like, did they really have a good day? And I've always yearned for more, I've always wanted more out of people. I've always expected more out of people. And I think a lot of that has to do with when I connect with people, I don't have a lot of friends, right? I don't. I keep a very, very small knit of people, and I think that reflects on the podcast maybe, and the way I talk and the people who I have on the podcast. I mean, the only friend really I have besides immediate family and my girlfriend was Charles, and I think that represents a lot of me. But I've always been so intrigued with the deeper level of people. I'm never surface level bullshit. I'm never that's a waste of my time. I don't enjoy that. I think it's stupid. I think it's pathetic. I think it's pathetic, and I exhaust people with talking to them because I compliment people. If I think they're smart, I let them know how smart they are. If they're a good looking person, I let them know you're a good looking person. If they're sad, I tell them it's okay to be sad. I've always yearned for more. I've always asked people if they cry a lot. I admit to people that I cry a lot if that comes up in conversation. I've always interfaced with the world, I think, attempting at a different level than most. And I think it's very important to figure out a way to I think this is my overall fascination with psychedelics, even though I've never tried them, never even consumed marijuana before, but I've always been so fascinated because it seems like a way to just pop out of reality for a second and to be above yourself and to really start watching the rat race of people and people pushing and shoving and yelling and screaming to get up top and to walk into the gym and just say, good, I'm doing good because they got somewhere to go. They got to go be here. They got to be here. They got to be here. And denying human connection and denying and refusing to have a deeper meaning with people, And it's so counterintuitive with me because, I don't really have too many friends, and that's because I struggle so much with really fully expressing myself to people, and I struggle so much if someone's not fully expressive to me about their life, and I don't expect them to. It's not my job to pull that from people, but what I want and what I yearn for the most is that level 2 meaning of a relationship with anybody. I think people struggle with that all the time because there's a constant notion as you're a child and as you grow up that you have to be first place. You have to get that job. You got to get that degree. You got to do it now. You got to do it in 4 years. You got to graduate in this amount of time. You got to have a kid by here. You got to do this, but there's no breathing room, right? There's no breathing room. And I think that's dangerous. And I think it's a beautiful sight when you ask somebody, how's it doing today? And they look at you and they say, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And I would say, what do you mean all right? You're not doing great? You're happy, you're sad. And they say, just a long day at work, struggle with the boss, having trouble at the home with the family. And it's not a creepy thing. It's not intended to be a creepy thing, but it's just a level 2 understanding of people. I don't know. I love that quote. Admit it. You aren't like them. You're not even close. You may occasionally dress yourself up as one of them, watch the same mindless television shows as they do, maybe even eat the same fast food sometimes. And I like that because occasionally you slip back into it. You slip back into the wormhole. You slip back into the rat race. And having the ability to look up, peek your head out like a meerkat, and hopping right back out of that, getting out of the monotony of that nonsense, of that bullshit world that so many people live in. And I'm not shitting on it, but it's not for me, and I think it's okay if it's not for me because I'm sure it's not for a lot of people out there, and I'm sure if you escape it, then you're gonna realize how much more intriguing it is to live in a world where there's deeper everything to everything. But it seems that the more you try to fit in, which we all try, the more you feel like an outsider, watching the normal people as they go about their automatic existence. For every time you say club passwords, I love that, club passwords. I love that, just standard things that people say. Like, have a nice day, and weather's awful today, eh? You yearn inside to say forbidden things, because it's true, right? It's so true. If you say something like, how are you doing today? Even if you just say something like, I'm doing swell, or, doing well. I'm doing okay. I mean, it's Thursday. I'm getting through it. People, it's forbidden. It's like, what? I wasn't asking. That's not. It's so accepted too, right? It's so accepted. Like, people teach you, like, that's how you talk to somebody. It's like, no, that's not. No. That's not how you talk to people. No, that's not how you do it. You don't just like, oh, good. And there's sometimes there's situations like that, but most of the time, no, right? If you have places to go, yeah, okay, I get it. But I love how Timothy Leary says forbidden. They're forbidden. They're like the forbidden fruit of Adam and Eve. Don't touch it. Don't say it. Don't even look at it. Don't be deeper. Don't express yourself to people. Don't let people know more. Don't let people into your life. Don't let them know it's not your job to present yourself to other people. Don't waste your time. Forbidden things like, tell me something that makes you cry. Nobody says that. Or, what do you think deja vu is for? That's a trip right there. That shit blow my mind. I struggle so much with trying to think about deja vu. I almost think it's like a different reality. Like when we sleep, we're awake, and then the times we deja vu is our dreams during our sleep, right? Like, if you're sleeping, let me write this down real quick. Dreaming, sleeping, deja vu. If you're like sleeping, right? You're out, whatever. You're dreaming, right? Then you're dreaming. And when you have deja vu, it's like you're peeking back into your dream. It's like you're back into reality. Like, deja vu is, so when you're sleeping, whatever your dream is, that's your reality. But deja vu is like an escape from your reality back into a dream. Yeah, I don't know. I love that. God, dude, I love that quote so much. It's a quote that I have related to the most of any quote I've ever heard in my entire life, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, I read that, and I was like, God damn, that's me. And so many of them are true. Here's this one talking about women equality. He's like, I I think he says something like women want to be equal, but it's like a disservice to them because they're not. They're more than that. They never will be equal to men. You don't want to be equal to men. Most men, a lot of men, are very, very weak. You don't want to be like that. Be the best woman you can be, right? You know what I mean? It's an interesting quote. But just one other thing I want to tie up here, just like a little fun fact, I guess. Because I got to pee and I got to get going. Just, I guess, I don't know. You probably don't care at all, but I'm going to go ahead and share it real quick with you. I just got a happy birthday from somebody. All right, Merry Christmas, which is so sweet that people do that. But that genetic sharing, or like genetic DNA collecting company called 23andMe. So the lady who's the CEO and founder of that company, her ex-husband from like a year and a half ago is the CEO and founder of Google. One of them. He's also from Moscow, Russia. He's a dual citizen. But her sister, so the CEO and founder of 23andMe, which is a DNA collecting company, they tell you all about your history, your genetics. Her sister is the CEO and founder of YouTube. I don't know founder, but she's the current CEO. And the lady who owns 23andMe is her ex-husband, is the CEO and founder of Google. Google owns YouTube. So it's just crazy. So there's like at the top, there's so much power at the top. But I got to pee so bad, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 52. I'll catch you guys later in the New Year's probably, but I don't know. I'll catch you guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great one. See ya.